The Shark Deck.
I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. The Hollywood Reporter talked to John Mulaney about his 2014 sitcom Mulaney. Do you remember that one happened? Nobody watched that. I remember that one coming out, and I paid attention to it because I was running SiriusXM Comedy at the time, so I was hip to John Mulaney a little earlier than most. But yeah, that bombed pretty hard. Anyway, calling the show Mulaney was the title risky, John? John said, very anonymous. I think they thought I was bringing a sensibility to it that was, I don't know, more widely appreciated. And then I was also trying to turn that on its head by doing a multicam like, look, we can really make this form weird and interesting again. There were a lot of challenges, and I really suffered from high self-esteem at that time. There was another version at NBC called Mulaney Don't Drink, which was about me getting sober at 23. Interesting, right? John said, it was based on the time in my life when I got sober at 23 and had 2 roommates and was just trying to figure out, what does a good person do? That was an actual part of my life, or a pointless gauntlet I threw down in front of myself. That was the NBC show, and there was really something lost when I, on the advice of others higher up, took that out. But I take full responsibility. I lost the thread that made it something. John also discussed SNL, saying people talk about how high stakes and stressful it is. It's also the most protected environment in entertainment. We don't get notes. I saw Jeff Zucker maybe once when he was the president of NBC. Nothing reached us. So to suddenly be the writer, producer, and star of a network pilot, let alone a series, it was suddenly being the captain of a cruise ship. I was like, I have to worry about personnel, menu binders, meals for people, hours, how late everyone's there. Would you do another sitcom, John? My immediate thought was, oh, should I? One thing I learned from doing that was I wasn't sure what my story was. Like, what exactly am I bringing everyone, and why do they need it? But he adds, before I die, I'd like to write one film as good as Searching for Bobby Fischer or any of those films I saw as a kid that really packed a punch and just got life right. If I could do that once, I'd be very happy. Amer talked to the Hollywood Reporter about The Line, and Mo said, you don't know where the line is until you cross it. Anytime I was fearful about something in the show, it was because it was so personal, it was scary. There was one scene where I literally broke down. It was about my father being tortured and about dealing with that and suppressing that in the series. I thought, oh man, I didn't mourn this in my actual life. Whoops, I'm walking off and nobody can even look at you in the eye. Years ago, Dave Chappelle told me, be so honest that it's hard to make eye contact with you. I didn't get it until that moment. It makes me emotional just thinking about it. Yahoo asked Hari Kondabolu if he thinks his experiences growing up in Queens, New York City, not too far from where I grew up, helped shape him into being a quote-unquote political comic. Hari said, I think it developed into that. The same thing that made me want to work in immigrant rights is the same thing that made me want to write honest, confrontational material, was this idea that things aren't fair and I want to do something about it. Then after a while, you start to realize comedy's not going to fix anything, but initially I just had this fire of, I want to say something. Post 9/11, everything changed. Before that, I was a kid sheltered in the diversity of Queens and really didn't question U.S. history as much as I probably should have. And after 9/11, I'm all of a sudden thinking about war critically. I thought a lot about racism and how that manifests. Made me rethink everything I thought about the country. So that really spurred my intellectual curiosity, and that spurred my stand-up development. As for the comedy climate today, Hari says, there are all these social movements happening at the same time at a much faster rate as a result of the internet, and people for the first time are getting their voices heard, and that comes with the power dynamics that come with any form of expression in this country. Generally, it's mostly a white audience in the mainstream who controls the studios, and it's usually white people that have control of most of these things. There's institutional racism in this country, and so everything you're creating as an artist is always up against that background. And all of a sudden, you're seeing this period of great change, or at least great questioning. There's growing pains in that people don't know how to communicate with each other. They don't know how to talk about critical things, and certainly Twitter doesn't help. The internet doesn't help with that. And navigating that is really hard, especially as an artist, especially as a stand-up who edits live. Unlike other art forms, we make mistakes as part of the gig. And so I think people will look at this period as one of great transition and like a tug-of-war of ideologies, and also of opinions on how free speech works and how it should work. The Good One podcast talked to Kathleen Madigan about touring, and she says it's very difficult to have a normal life. Most people will hate you because you're gone all the time. They think it's funny in the beginning, and then you miss another baptism and another birthday. That's never the life I wanted. You can't have stability. You have to be comfortable with organized chaos. I do really well in organized chaos because it keeps my attention. It's activity-based versus with my one sister, safety would be her number one thing. She wants to be organized, safe, nothing unpredictable. That's her idea of happiness. Mine is I like to be very unpredictable. I like it to be chaotic, but I want to know I have control over it. I've always been like this, even when I was a kid. I think my parents would say that too. Like my one sister, every night before school, she had her uniform out, her things set out, everything was perfectly organized and neat. My side of the room looked like it had been looted. Variety asked Wada Sykes, were there times when comedians were anti-gay or anti-trans before you came out, when you were still coming up? Wanda said, yeah, people would say all kinds of horrible things that we used to let people get away with. But in this country, they would hold public lynchings and people would have picnics and eat potato salad while watching. We're evolving. We're getting better. The steps back in both the news and comedy, that's what makes the most noise instead of the progress we're making. I think they're just louder, all the Trump supporters and all that, but I like to focus on the wins. I mean, there are not a lot of them, but I like to celebrate them.
Earn great returns on your money with the safety and security of a community bank. Bank of Clark is offering 4.5% annual percentage yield on 6-month CDs, 4.75% APY on 12-month CDs and IRAs, and 5% APY on 15 and 18-month CDs. Plus, earn up to 3% APY on Bank of Clark money market accounts. Visit your local Bank of Clark branch today or go to bankofclark.bank. We're the bank for that. Member FDIC. Limited time offer. Rate subject to change at any time. Minimum balance of $1,000 on CDs. On MMAs, minimum of $1,000 to open, $25,000 to earn interest. Balance of $100,000 to obtain the 3%.
Hey, you know what's back this week? It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I'm looking forward to that, one of my favorite shows. A new study determined that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia has the highest words per minute at 176.2 words per minute. The AV Club writes, that might not be ideal in terms of accessibility. You see, there's a 6-second rule in subtitle creation that suggests a 2-line snippet of dialogue should be on the screen for about 6 seconds, which is roughly 140 words per minute, not 176.2. The nearest competitor, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, 174.6 words per minute. Today is June 4th, and if you are a friend of mine, you know that every year I watch Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan for the anniversary. That was the Saturday night movie in the basement last night. And I'm a little sad I didn't get to go see Khan the Musical. Today's the last day that it's playing. Khan the Musical, based on Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, except this time it's a musical. And TrekMovie.com said, the script is flat out funny. All the jokes landed, delivered at a machine gun pace, and rarely misfiring. The humor covered diverse topics like Shatner's toupee. By the way, there is an entire blog about Shatner's toupee. I think it's actually called Shatner's toupee. Wonderful deep dive. The historical unreliability of the Hamilton musical and the inherent comedic gold of chickens. The nerdiest Trekker, the lifelong theater kid, and the newest arrival to the fandom will all laugh until their sides get sore. While there are deep-cut Trek references around every bend, and some of the jokes will warp past Trek newbies, the writers nevertheless go out of their way to ensure the play remains accessible. Songs benefit from a variety of musical styles with tap, jazz, group showstoppers, and heartfelt solos. Standouts include Admiral Kirk's character theme and Khan's flamboyantly vengeant My Wrath. The setup here, Data from Star Trek The Next Generation, he's doing some sort of holodeck simulation of the events of the Wrath of Khan, so we're seeing this through Data's eyes. Data acts not just as the narrator of the musical, but also plays certain characters in the story. I listened to an interview with the creator of the musical on a podcast called Inglorious Treksperts. If you are a Star Trek fan, that should be the next thing you download. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic Star Trek podcast. So from memory, I think they said Data steps in to play David Marcus. He plays Khan's sidekick, and I think he plays one other character. Anyway, I'm sad I did not get to see Khan the Musical, but if you're in New York City and you got up early today and you downloaded the podcast and now you're pumped, it's playing today at the Players Theater in New York City. The creator did say on the Inglorious Treksperts podcast that he hopes to do more versions of this in the future. I just, May was a real bear and I didn't get a chance to get out there, but Khan the Musical. Speaking of Star Trek, William Shatner is the guest on the most recent Mark Maron podcast. So I met Shatner, and I'm a big Captain James T. Kirk fan, in case you can't tell. But Shatner, when I met Shatner in real life, he's got a reputation for being difficult. I think I'm on Team George Takei here. If you listen to the Maron interview, especially in the beginning before Shatner warms up, you can hear a little bit of the difficultness or okay, this guy's just a pain to get along with. That was my experience when I met Shatner. The second time I saw Shatner, he was leaving SiriusXM and I was walking in. And again, I'm a big Trekkie, and I couldn't even be bothered to attempt to say hello. I was so turned off from this first visit. And I've met a lot of cool celebrities over the years, but Shatner wasn't one of them, unfortunately. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. If you've never seen it, pretty good film. That's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your shows. See you tomorrow.
Earn great returns on your money with the safety and security of a community bank. Bank of Clark is offering 4.5% annual percentage yield on 6-month CDs, 4.75% APY on 12-month CDs and IRAs, and 5% APY on 15 and 18-month CDs. Plus, earn up to 3% APY on Bank of Clark money market accounts. Visit your local Bank of Clark branch today or go to bankofclark.bank. We're the bank for that. Member FDIC. Limited time offer. Rate subject to change at any time. Minimum balance of $1,000 on CDs. On MMAs, minimum of $1,000 to open, $25,000 to earn interest. Balance of $100,000 to obtain the 3%.